Good morning, dear respected Thai, dear brothers and sisters, dear Sangha and dear friends. Today is the 20th of November, the year 2016, and we are in the Stillwater Meditation Hall of the Dharma Cloud Temple, the Upper Hamlet. We welcome everyone to our first day of mindfulness of our winter retreat, the Monastic Rains Retreat. And this is the first day that the Fourfold Sangha is practicing together. And that is the monks and nuns, the laymen and the laywomen. This is the first time that the advanced technology is on my ear, and it's the first time for me, so I'm getting used to this high technology. I hope the translation boxes are working well. If there's some problem, please raise your hand and the brothers will come and fix it. So, last Sunday we gathered here for the face-to-face ceremony, the opening ceremony. And we were so happy and grateful to have Thai's presence. Thai came for that opening ceremony. And Thai's peaceful and compassionate presence really nourished us, supported us, and inspired us in our practice for the winter retreat. We offered our respect to Thai and our promises to Thai, that we would continue to practice wholeheartedly, to be worthy continuation of Thai, to follow in his footsteps, and that we would also stay in the Sangha for the 3 months. And the 3 months rain retreat is what the Buddha established for his monastic Sangha. So they would stay in one place in order to deepen their practice, to be able to develop more their mindfulness, their concentration, and their insight. And also it was chosen to help protect the little insects, the small insects and worms that surfaced to the earth when it rained a lot. So it was out of the Buddha's compassion that he chose to limit the walking so as not to harm any form of life. So the monastic Sangha stayed in one place, and the lay people came and supported them, with the necessities of their life. We expressed our gratitude to Thai for the wonderful teachings he has given us over the years and the example he has been to us also over many, many years. An example of practicing, of his great bodhicitta to want to go and help all beings, the great bodhisattva. We said also that we promised to remember the Buddha's teaching and Thai's teaching, which is to live deeply in the present moment, to not be carried away by fears about what would happen in the future, or to be lost in our regrets about what has happened in the past, but we would cultivate our capacity to be nourished by the wonders of life that are truly available right now, right here. We only have to look around us and see the beautiful autumn leaves, the green grass, the sunshine. We're fully present. And our hearts are established in mindfulness so that we can live deeply this present moment. And when we're able to live in the present moment, we know that love, peace, and compassion are available to us. We have these seeds already in our consciousness, and when we focus our attention on our mindful breathing and our mindful footsteps, these wonderful seeds of love and peace can manifest. We also shared a promise to Thai that we would continue to build brotherhood and sisterhood in our Sangha and offer friendship to all beings as spiritual friends, Kalyana Mitras. And so these were the promises that we offered Thai, and we were so deeply moved and nourished by Thai's presence at this opening ceremony. We know that some of you, or even many of you, arrived 2 days ago on Friday. And perhaps you've come from many countries. You prepared your journey, arranging time away from work, and arranging for others to look after your daily responsibilities. You arranged your transportation to come here, and also other details. So your journey had the aspect of being an outer journey. And when you arrived, you could say, I have arrived. This outer journey ended when you arrived. I have arrived. I'm in Plum Village. And when we say we have arrived, we also say, I am home. So the mindfulness practice helps us come home to ourselves. We, in a sense, always carry our home with us. We have the outer journey of travel, and we arrive somewhere, we have a destination, and then we say, I have arrived, let me come home now to myself with my practice. As practitioners of mindfulness, we can consider ourselves also as pilgrims on a spiritual path. We're on a spiritual journey. So we have this aspect of the inner journey. And to have this aspect of the inner journey, we don't have to travel. And we can stay right where we are, and then the change and the arriving happens in an inward sense. Our inner journey can be considered like the trees. They give us an example. They stay rooted in the earth. Their roots go deep, they are stable, and yet there is change in the trees. The leaves change color, they fall to the earth. So there is both change and impermanence, and yet stability and rootedness. So this winter we may want to consider that as a model for us to be like the trees, to remain rooted in our practice, in our self, but also allow for the change that will naturally happen. When we think of our practice, maybe we want to consider, do I want to emphasize one aspect of my practice? Or we can say, how is the state of my practice now? How am I doing? What do I need to change? Or what do I want to change? One question we can ask is, do I need to put more effort into coming to all of the activities, coming to the sitting meditation twice a day, coming to the community gathering, coming to walking meditation? Do I want to be more present, fully present this winter, and not isolate myself, so that I can really be a part of the whole Sangha? I can be a cell in the whole Sangha body, and not practice as a separate self. So maybe I want to be a little bit more persevering and a little bit more diligent. But of course with compassion to myself, to not make myself too tired. So our practice is always awareness of our body, taking good care of our body. Sometimes we're not at the activities because we can't come. Maybe we have to cook, or we're driving to the train station to pick up our guests, or we've taken the cars to the garage, or driven someone to the doctor. Maybe there are reasons we're not there, but we want to be there. But then there's another situation where we're not there because inside we say, I don't want to go. So how I practice, when that comes up in me, it's the I don't want to go voice. I say, I go. I take myself anyway. And then afterwards, I feel better. For example, the chanting, if I come and I chant, I feel much better. It lightens my mind. So going when I don't want to go, I have found it helps. Maybe we have another situation with the style of our practice. Am I kind of tense, wired up, stressed out? So I say, do I need to relax more during this winter retreat? And not be so worried or so anxious, so that I can become more light and free. This may be our situation as well, and we can actually experience both situations with the state of our practice over a period of time. Either we're too responsible, where we feel we have to control everything has to be according to the way we think it should be, and then we worry and we become frustrated and angry and all of this. So maybe what we need to do is learn more relaxation. There is a wonderful song that the young people sing here during the wake-up retreats. The teenagers also sing it. And it's a song called Moving. So even though we're going to stay here, we're going to move. And maybe some of you know this song. The words are, "We are moving on a journey to nowhere. Taking it easy, taking it slow. No more worries, no need to hurry. Nothing to carry, let it all go." It's a wonderful song. Maybe we can sing it at the end, if some people know it. It's really, I see some heads nodding, so we can share this wonderful song of how to practice with the no-form practice. It's still possible to practice in a relaxed way, keeping our mindfulness and awareness present. But we're letting go of what makes us upset, what gives us stress and tension in our body. We know when we walk, we enjoy every footstep. We're taking it easy when we walk. We no longer are rushing. We're taking it slowly. We're walking very gently and slowly, enjoying the beauty around us. When walking, we let go of our thinking, our worries about what might happen in the future, but it hasn't happened yet. We let go of our projects, our fears, our anxieties, so we're not thinking about anything. We're letting it all go. We're dropping all our notions. We're letting go of all our views, letting go of all our opinions, all of the stuff that keeps our minds so busy and keeps us away from feeling relaxed and peaceful. So we're on a journey to nowhere other than the present moment. So this is where our walking will bring us. It'll bring us to the present moment. We live in the present moment, and we're always arriving in the present moment. Thich says we arrive in the present moment with each footstep, with our breathing, and with our light and happy mind. So this may want to be our theme song for the winter retreat, if you think it's appropriate. The song of freedom and happiness. For the monastic brothers and sisters, we may want to consider this as part of our theme song also. Being happy and free together, letting go of our worries, celebrating the wonderful conditions we have right here and right now. When we live without our worries, when we stop rushing, we put down all of our baggage and we can smile. So maybe let us enjoy smiling as we listen to one sound of the bell and we can enjoy our breathing. We smile to our body. We say, "Hello, my body, I know you are there. I smile to you now as I enjoy my breathing in and my breathing out." with our practice of mindful breathing and mindful walking, we can experience that living without worries is possible. And the longer we cultivate this energy of mindfulness in us, the stronger it will become. And then it will become like a bright torch lighting our path, helping us see what is happening in us and around us. Mindfulness also lets us become aware of our thinking. What are these thoughts that I'm thinking? Are they positive thoughts? Are they loving? Are they appreciative? Are they kind? Are they wholesome? Or are they negative? Are they unwholesome? Are my thoughts making me scared and anxious about what may happen in the future? Or are they making me angry and resentful about what has happened in the past? Or are my thoughts giving me confidence and trust? That's possible. We can say to ourselves, I've been practicing already 1 week and yeah, I'm feeling better. Or we can say, I've been practicing 4 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, longer than 10 years. And I see that I'm more calm. I don't react as often. I know how to take care of my strong emotions. I stop and I breathe. I relax. I don't respond. So we can think of our practice, think of ourselves, how we are much happier now after practicing. Even after 2 or 3 days, it's possible. So we say, yes, I see the practice has helped me with my inner journey. My practice is a source of support to me. I see I've been able to begin to transform my suffering. Or I see I've been able to transform a lot of my suffering. I've been able to transform some of my habit energies, or one habit energy, but we can see the progress. When we say, yes, I see that the practice is helping me, and I see it in my friends, in my brothers and sisters, I see it as also helping them. This is an example of what the Buddha called right view. And that is that we have faith and confidence that there are people who have been able to transform their suffering with the practices. So this morning we'll be looking into right view, and throughout the Munchu retreat, every Sunday we'll be looking at different parts of the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. And right view is a vast teaching. The Buddha gave teachings on right view, as well as the monk Shariputra gave teachings on right view. And it won't be possible today for me to cover all of those teachings, but I'll give you some resources so you can continue to study on your own the topic of right view. As some of our suffering comes from the fact that we are caught in our views. We hold on to them. We hold on to them tightly, and we don't let go of our views. And some of our suffering can come from the fact that other people hold on to their views. They won't let go of them. And they're not open to changing their views. So the suffering connected to views is about attachment to views, and it can be my attachment to my view that's making others suffer, or their attachment to their views that's making us suffer. So one of the aspects of suffering is attachment to views. And we know members of the Order of Interbeing, this is one of the mindfulness trainings that is part of your daily life of practice, of being aware of attachment to views. And Thai created the 14 mindfulness trainings in a situation that really required openness, non-attachment to views, freedom of thought. We also have the 5 mindfulness trainings that help us have right view. The mindfulness trainings and our practices go together. So mindfulness practice gives us the capacity to develop more concentration and more insight. And then we can have more understanding of what the situation is right here and right now, and then think of which training would be appropriate, which training could help right now. There is a story the Buddha tells as an example of attachment to view. And it's a story of a young widower, a young man who was a merchant. And he had a 5-year-old little boy. And one day he had to go on a trip, a business trip in ancient India. So he left his little boy under the care of someone responsible. It doesn't say whom, but I'm sure family member. However, during his absence, some brigands, sort of like pirates on land, they came and invaded the little village, and they did a lot of destruction. They destroyed everything. They burnt down the houses, and the people with the fire, they lost their lives. The women, the children were burned, they died. So this was a terrible tragedy. When the young merchant returned, he saw that his house had been burned down, and on the side he saw the body of a little boy, the charred body of a little boy. And he took this to be his son. So he had the body cremated, and after that he put the ashes in a little bag. And because he was in such deep mourning, he wore the bag around his neck. He had the ashes of his little boy always with him. And he loved his little boy very much, so he stayed awake at night, and he was mourning and crying in the loss of his little boy. One night, however, he heard a knock on the door. And then a little voice said, "Daddy, Daddy, open the door, it's me, your son." But he couldn't believe. No, he said, "No, that's not possible, my son died. I have my son with me now." And he heard the knock again. "Daddy, Daddy, open the door, it's me, your son. Please open the door." And the merchant said, "Go away, stop ridiculing me. Don't you know my son died?" And the little boy tried a third time, and the merchant said, "Don't bother me, go away now." So, in fact, it was the merchant's son who had been able to come back to his home. He knocked on the door. He was looking forward to seeing his daddy, but his father was so attached to the view that his son has died. So they both lost this opportunity. The Buddha gave this as an example of extreme attachment to view, being so caught up that we think that we have the absolute truth. It's a sad story, but it can be a way for us to be willing to let go of some of our views, to have openness of views. Regarding views, the truth is that not everyone shares the same views. We have different views and different perceptions about life, about people, about events. And our perceptions are influenced by the seeds in our store consciousness. So in a sense, our views are influenced by the seeds in our store consciousness that are planted from or transmitted to us by our ancestors, our growing up, our experiences in life. All of these experiences can affect our views. We were all born as beautiful flowers. A newborn child is beautiful, very innocent. And the newborn child's consciousness contains many seeds and experiences of the ancestors. So in a good environment, the best seeds are watered. In an environment that is negative, the negative seeds will be watered. And that, in a sense, can really influence our views. With our practices of stopping and looking deeply, we can understand ourselves and our views, how our views have been formed, but also how someone else has come to be the way they are, how things arise, how thoughts are there, how values are developed. With understanding and compassion in our hearts, after looking deeply at our views, then more compassion, forgiveness, and reconciliation are possible. Let us enjoy another sound of the bell. We can come back to ourselves, nourish our well-being, our relaxation. Last spring, I was in a Dharma discussion group on a Sunday afternoon. We were in Lower Hamlet, and a retreatant shared a very wise insight she had heard from a Buddhist teacher. I'm sorry I don't remember the name of that teacher, because I want to give proper credit to this teacher. But maybe some of you have heard this statement. It says, the longest journey we will ever make is the journey from our head to our heart. And that statement touched many of us, and each of us can interpret it in our own way. Where are we on this journey? Maybe we're somewhere between the head and the heart. What does that mean? We're in our head. Are we still judging? Are we using our mind to judge, to criticize, to blame? Are we holding on to narrow views? Holding on to our own view? Or are we trying to change other ways of thinking, other people's ways of thinking, and not giving them the freedom to choose what to believe and how to decide? Are we not letting them have freedom of their thought? Are we still on the level of our mind with discrimination, hatred, violence? Are we intolerant of others' weaknesses and shortcomings? Are we trying to impose our views on others by authority or any other means? Well, the answer usually is no, I'm not like that, but they are, or he is, or she is. Or sometimes we can say honestly, well, there's some truth in that for me. And the Buddha said, if we say, I have a wrong view, with reference to all of these things I've mentioned, the Buddha said, if we say, I have a wrong view, that's a right view. So that's one easy way to have a right view. You say, I have a wrong view. So we usually have views of others, a right view or a wrong view of them. Now in New Hamlet, we're doing the practice of shining light on our aspirants, because on December 14th there will be a novice ordination. So we're sitting together to listen to one another, sharing our observations, our thoughts, our perceptions, our ideas, our thinking, our views. So there's a process now happening that does concern views. And decisions will be made when there is harmony of views. So this was something the Buddha said was very, very important for a spiritual community, to have harmony of views, so that everyone would be supporting one another. There would be compassion and understanding, and so that the new novice nuns would feel totally accepted. So we have this practice of shining light, a sharing of views to learn more. And we also have the practice of beginning anew, which is also a way of letting people know more about us. We share how much we appreciate others. We share if we've made mistakes because of our wrong views or whatever. We share our weaknesses, our challenges, our difficulties. And this helps immensely in enabling everyone to have a clearer picture, a clearer view, a right view. One of the things Thai has offered us is the mantra, which is to say, are you sure? Am I sure? When I have a view, we can say, am I absolutely sure? If not, check again. Or let me postpone the decision until a later time when I'm more sure. Being harmoniously together is something that our body is actually living. We are a living example of a physiology, a body that functions harmoniously if there is health. For example, all the neurons in our brain are interacting. There's a marvelous interbeing happening at the level of the neurons in our brain. There's no boss. They simply are sending, receiving, functioning as a real organism of interbeing. Our heart, our lungs, our liver, the kidneys, other parts of our body are also functioning in an interbeing sense. Everything is depending on everything else, adjusting to changes. And when there is a problem in one part, the other parts of the body can compensate or they feel the effect. So interbeing is really a fact of our life. And we know that in our families and in our Sangha, when someone suffers, we suffer also. We can feel the suffering in us. When our roommates are happy, we're happy. We share their happiness. So happiness is not an individual matter. It's a shared experience. So we know the mindfulness trainings give us a concrete guidance on our inner journey, helping us become aware of suffering and what to do to create happiness, to end the suffering. And here our friends are practicing the 5 mindfulness trainings or the 14 mindfulness trainings. The monastics have, in addition, maybe 10 novice precepts, and then the fully ordained bhikkhus and bhikshunis have 250 and 348 to ensure happiness. Each of the mindfulness trainings, each of them contains right view. So we know the 5 mindfulness trainings are offered as a concrete expression of the Buddha's teaching on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. And they are offered as a global ethic. That means they are ways people can live their lives to create happiness anywhere on this planet, anywhere in the world. A global ethic to create more happiness and peace on this planet. They can be practiced by people of any spiritual tradition. So they are very beautiful. And also the 14 mindfulness trainings were created by Thai in 1966 in a situation to help end the devastating effects of war, to continue to create peace and nourish compassion and understanding. The Buddha said also that right view is understanding very deeply the Four Noble Truths. Let us enjoy our breathing, and that will give me time to find my notes, the right note, to continue. So both the Buddha and the Venerable Shariputra gave teachings on right view. And right view, another example of right view is understanding deeply the Four Noble Truths. And I'm going to review that. I know almost everyone knows about the Four Noble Truths, but I'll share Thai's deep understanding, and he has rewritten them in a sense that gives us another view, another point of view on the Four Noble Truths. So in our daily practice, it's very useful and important to recognize when we're not doing okay. We can call it that way. I'm not doing okay. I'm having a bad day. Or I feel whatever you feel. If you're not happy, it means that maybe you're suffering. So that could be the beginning part. We'll put down, there is suffering. Suffering is there to some extent. Okay, there's a range of suffering, just from feeling a little bit out of sorts, a little bit irritated, a little bit tired, because the suffering is on the level of the body as well as the mind. If you have pain anywhere, that's some suffering. Suffering is present. There is the presence of suffering. In Chinese, the word, and also maybe in Vietnamese, the word is bitterness. Bitterness, dukkha. As opposed to happiness, which is described as sweetness. Okay, so we know, as practitioners, we try to find out why. Why am I feeling this way? What has happened? What has happened recently? Did I have difficulty sleeping? Do I have a stomach ache? Did someone say something that touched a seed in my past and then my suffering has come up? Why? So we try to look to the origin. The origins or the roots. Yeah. Arising of suffering. Arising of suffering. What has created my suffering? And what is the nature of my suffering? So there are a lot of words there for our looking into suffering, and you can choose just one would be enough. Why? Try to find out why. Okay. When we have some idea why there is suffering, then we want to try to remove the cause of that suffering, if we can. And now we're going to go to some of the practices that can remove the causes of suffering and bring happiness. And the Buddha called this the path, the marga. And these teachings come from the Buddha's enlightenment. This is the Buddha's first Dharma talk at the Deer Park after his enlightenment. He talked about, he realized suffering, the making of suffering, how to end suffering, and that happiness is possible. So, there is a path that leads to refraining from doing things that cause suffering, that cause us to suffer and cause others to suffer. And that is called the Noble Eightfold Path, which we'll be studying this winter. Or in the Chinese language tradition, it's called the Path of 8 Right Practices. And the 8 right practices, the first one is right view, which we're looking at today, not in its totality, but just in short examples. Right view is the first practice that can help us come out of suffering, our views. Another one is right thinking. I'll give all 8 today, but I won't talk about them. Okay, just so you know what's coming in the next few weeks. Right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, that means what you do for your living. Right diligence, right mindfulness, right concentration, right mindfulness, and then right concentration. So what I want to share now is that all of them inter-are. They all influence one another. So our thinking influences our views. Our views will influence our thinking. Our concentration will give us the capacity to have right view, and so on. So it's a continual practice, a process of seeing how everything helps and supports everything else in our practice. So if we find out or try to find out the source of the suffering, I have suffering, why do I have suffering? Why don't we just have a look at these 8 possibilities? They are possibilities Am I suffering, or is that person suffering because of the way they are thinking, their views? Has it been a suffering connected to some kind of action that has hurt others? Okay, so we try to find the origins and roots. And then the next step is to stop nourishing that source of suffering. Okay, when we stop nourishing that source of suffering, happiness is possible. The Venerable Shariputra said that right view is also recognizing the four nutriments, and how the four nutriments, that is what we eat, what we consume with our sense organs, our volition, and our consciousness. If we recognize that we are consuming either of these or all of these four nutriments that are contributing to suffering, that is right view, recognizing. Okay, so I'd like to continue with what the Venerable Shariputra said, that right view is having a deep look, a deep understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So I'm very happy to, right now, I will put on the board Thai's very deep understanding of the Four Noble Truths and how they can be looked at in a different way. So let's have another look. We'll have another view of the Four Noble Truths in terms of something else. We'll start with well-being. Okay? That's happiness. We're going to start there. Well-being, not ill-being. Suffering could be called ill-being. Okay, so we're going to start with well-being. The second thing, we're going to look to the causes of well-being. What are the roots of well-being? What can bring about well-being? That's the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path leads to well-being. Okay. Now we have ill-being, suffering. And what will lead to ill-being? What leads to suffering? It's called the ignoble Eightfold Path. Ignoble, not noble, ignoble. Ignoble. I-G-N-O-B-L-E. Ignoble. Eightfold Path. And that leads to suffering. And what that is, it's wrong views. It's wrong thinking, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong diligence, wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration. All of these wrongs will lead to suffering. But maybe life is not so black and white, but this is a deep understanding of the Four Noble Truths that Thich has offered in the book, The Heart of the Buddhist Teachings. And I I recommend this book to everyone who is interested in learning more about the basic teachings that the Buddha offered. And the book contains Thai's commentary, which is very deep, insightful, and its right view. Thai's teaching. So, we've looked at the traditional formulation of the Four Noble Truths, but we also see that we can begin with happiness and well-being and practice the Noble Eightfold Path to assure our happiness. And the Eightfold Path is the Mindfulness Trainings, the 5 and the 14, bring more well-being. We know if we don't practice this path, we'll drop into ill-being. We'll have some suffering because we don't know right from wrong. Maybe. So friends, let's just take a break and enjoy our breathing. Right view is not always the most interesting topic. It's necessary. It's very necessary, but it's not always easy to explain. I hope it's interesting to you, interesting to me. But I see some people are nodding. Eyes are closed, so let's enjoy our breathing. Each week, our brothers and sisters will be sharing on the Noble Eightfold Path, but also bringing in other teachings. And I'd like to mention something very briefly about truth. The Buddha taught there are two kinds of truth, absolute truth and then the relative truth. And I don't know if most of the time the truth that we know and experience is relative truth. The absolute truth would be perhaps the Prajnaparamita Sutra. There is no birth, no death, no being, no non-being. But the relative truth is that yes, we do see birth and death. We do. We see it. We see changes. We see that. An example of relative truth that I've experienced here is in the summertime it's quite hot. Once a sister said to me, "Oh, please go to the cooler and bring out some lettuce. Bring out the lettuce." She was making the salad. And it was about 30 degrees outside, very hot. So I went into the cooler. Outside the door of the cooler, it said 7 degrees. So I went into the cooler and I smiled. I said, "Oh, it's nice and cool in here." And I appreciated that moment of coolness. Another time during the winter, it was quite cold. It was before a global warming really manifested. It was quite cold here. I think that day it was -6. And I was asked to go to the cooler again, the same cooler. And it said 7 degrees. And I went into the cooler and I said, "Oh, it's warm in here." So this is relative truth. We can't say 7 degrees is cool, all the time cool, because sometimes 7 degrees can be experienced as hot, warm. So this is, in a sense, part of right view, to see things in terms of the context in which we're speaking or understanding. The teachings of right view that the Buddha wanted to emphasize is that right view can give us faith and confidence and unshakable determination to practice the Dharma. It gives us this confidence in the Dharma. And when we can say to ourselves, yes, I've experienced that practicing the Dharma, practicing mindfulness has really changed my life, we're expressing a right view according to the Buddha. I thought of writing on the board just briefly some of the things we find in the 14 mindfulness trainings with the first 3 mindfulness trainings that concern the mind and the views. And just for simplicity, I'll make 2 columns and say right view, wrong view. But it won't be the absolute truth. It'll be relative to help us see and understand. You know, with our practice of the trainings, we're on the path of a bodhisattva. We're not just students sitting at our desk and learning, but we're putting them into practice in our daily life here in Plum Village to help everyone, and also when we go out to lead retreats as we follow in the footsteps of Thai. This is our aspiration, to follow and continue in the footsteps of Thai. So the mindfulness trainings give us this opportunity to develop and cultivate our seeds of love and compassion and deep listening, of Avalokiteshvara, our compassion to look deeply and understand as the Bodhisattva Manjushri, to not react, and then to work mindfully and joyfully for the sake of all beings as Samantabhadra, and to be fearless and persevering and going to all kinds of situations to help where there is darkness and suffering. And we know now on planet Earth, the Bodhisattvas specializing in all 4 of those practices are needed very much everywhere. So I want to give my deepest admiration and respect to the Order of Interbeing members who are out there practicing and creating sanghas and practicing with your mindfulness trainings. Really appreciate you very much. So, for right view, we want to practice non-attachment to views. Try to see a view as a point of view. And maybe there's another point that is possible. You can see another side of the picture. And when we're able to see another side of the picture, then we can let go of our view. And we do this by compassionate listening to others, compassionate dialoguing. Practice non-attachment to views. We can be open to others' experiences. And accepting the collective understanding. And wisdom. And we do this by compassionate listening, deep looking, and letting go of our notions. So the deep looking is possible when we calm our mind. We practice mindful breathing or mindful walking to give the mind the conditions to be able to look deeply and see clearly. The two basic practices that we do, deep looking, stopping, calming the mind to look deeply and understand that if I hold on to this notion, will it create happiness or suffering? And maybe we don't know right away, but we'll listen to others' viewpoints, accept the collective understanding and wisdom. And we'll practice to not accumulate so much intellectual knowledge so that it overrides our capacity to understand and look deeply. If we just collect so much intellectual knowledge, we think the knowledge we possess is absolute, unchanging truth. So we'll be very open. Of course, we can study and learn, but the intellectual knowledge is not always the final truth. Not accumulate knowledge. At the expense of deep understanding. For example, maybe you want to learn a lot about Buddhism, so you take a lot of courses and you read 50 books on Buddhism to accumulate a lot of intellectual knowledge about the history of Buddhism. But don't let that be at the expense of your practicing what the Buddha taught. Practicing mindful breathing, mindful walking, total relaxation, not at the expense of not practicing the Dharma doors that Thich has created. Okay, and then finally we want to observe life in us and around us and be ready to learn based on our experience. And with this practice, we'll keep an openness. We'll be able to keep an openness of our mind, an openness to accept others, an openness to let go of our notions and views that are blocking our compassion, our love, our understanding. So we put this down as right view. The wrong view would be perhaps the opposite. Attachment to views and wrong perceptions, being narrow-minded, being bound to present views, thinking that our knowledge or our way of seeing it is the absolute truth, and that we accumulate intellectual knowledge instead of observing life and seeing what is actually there, experiencing the beauty of life. So with the wrong view that I just mentioned, it can lead to fanaticism, a lot of fear, anxiety, despair, anger, hopelessness, and stress with the wrong views that I didn't write. And when there are strong views communicated or held on to, sometimes there can be reactions in others. When there are strong, narrow views, sometimes control goes along with that, and there can be reactions in other people. So, in conclusion, I'd like to share that during this winter retreat, we'll be able actually to focus more on happiness and to nourish the happiness we have, knowing that we have so many conditions available here and now for our happiness. We're together. We have wonderful friends along the path. We have new friends that we're meeting. We have our brothers and sisters from different practice centers being with us. We have the same interest, don't we, of mindfulness. We're able to eat healthy food. It doesn't cause harm to any animals. We're practicing compassion for Mother Earth. We have the green grass, the autumn leaves, the sunshine, the rain, the fresh air. So these elements are found when we live in the present moment, and this can be our practice for the winter retreat as well, to live in the present moment. We know our happiness is not separate from the happiness of others. So I do have a list of references. If you want to study further, I will write them on the board later, not now. But I think this might be a good place to end. I have shared some of the traditional teachings on right view, but not all. And the references I will write will give you more places to go to read more about right view. But the important thing is not so much what you're going to read, but to be aware in your daily life here or at home, aware of my view, aware of the view of others, and the effect of my view on myself and on others. So the teachings are just guiding means. The teachings are to help us develop more awareness, more compassion, more peace, and more love. And right view is just one aspect of the teachings, but it can bring a lot of happiness, but it can also lead to suffering. So views have that possibility to bring happiness or suffering. There was a song I mentioned. I don't know if we'd like to sing that song called Moving. We are moving on the journey to nowhere. Taking it easy, taking it slow. No more worries, no need to hurry. Nothing to carry, let it all go. And maybe after the song we'll enjoy hearing 3 sounds of the bell, and perhaps there'll be some announcements. So thank you, dear friends, for listening. We wish you all a very happy winter retreat. There'll be more teachings, and each brother and sister have their own style. So that's very nice, something to look forward to. So who knows the song We Are All Moving? Oh, good. So we'd like to sing it? We are moving on a journey to nowhere, taking it easy, taking it slow. No more worries, no need to hurry, nothing to carry, let it all go. Again. We are moving on a journey to nowhere, taking it easy.